A couple of months ago, I went to a wedding. At the wedding, they had on each table several pots of herbs. And at the end of the wedding, everyone was allowed to take some of the herbs home. Well, I think I was the only one that took some, but I took 3 pots. I brought them home, and I put them on my deck. And then I began to think, maybe I should make a grow box and put the herbs in the grow box. Now, a grow box is a device that allows you to raise plants and don't have the constant worry of watering them all the time in order to keep them healthy. And I'll show you how I made this grow box, and it's very cute, works very well, and the plants thrive. You can use it inside or outside. The first thing I had to do was to come up with the items necessary to make the box. Now here's a picture of the completed grow box. It's been growing now for about 2 months. Here's the box that I used to set the whole thing up. I went to the liquor store and I got a wooden box that they use to ship wine. The box, of course, was for free. Then I went to the dollar store and got a plastic container, as you see here. Now I had to make sure that the container would fit into the box, and of course it did, as you can see. The next thing I did is I continued on at the dollar store and I picked up some toys. One of the toys was eyeballs. They're really Halloween eyeballs, and they're really small ping pong balls with eyes on them, of course. I also picked up a little alien, little toy, because I wanted to use him too, and I show that here on the right. Now, with all the equipment, the first thing I did was put holes in the lid of the plastic container. And I put 3 or 4 small holes for drainage. Then I put 2 larger holes into which I inserted small pieces of PVC pipe, as you can see, and then a larger hole where I put a long piece of PVC pipe. Now, the smaller tubes are referred to as wick tubes, and the larger tube is the gauge tube or filling tube, and I'll explain more about that in a moment. Each of the bases of the tubes underneath in the tray are cut at an angle so that water can easily enter the tube or exit the tube if you're filling it. Now I stuffed wicks or pieces of cloth into the smaller tubes and extended them out through the top. These will serve to bring water from the plastic tray up into the soil in the box. Next thing I did is stapled a piece of plastic over the sides of the box and extended the tubes up through the plastic with the wicks exposed. Now I had to make the gauge, and this is a gauge that tells you how much water is in the tray and whether you should add water or not. Here's the way I made it. I cut the head, unfortunately, I beheaded the little alien that I got, and I put them on one end of a small dowel. And then I took a piece of the plastic that I cut from the top of the box, that is the plastic box, and made that, slid it up towards the head, and I call this the guide piece, as you can see. On the bottom, I drilled a little hole in the eyeball, that is the plastic ping pong ball, and stuck the other end of the dowel in it. Now this is going to serve as a float. Now instead of using a dowel, you could use, of course, wire. Now what I'm doing here is I'm marking the level of the wire so I cut it at the right height. Now I mean the right height will be so that the little man's head protrudes when the water tray is filled, and his head will go down below the gauge level or the tube level when the water is required. In other words, it's starting to go dry. Now, if we continue on, here I'm inserting, this time I'm using a wire, into the plastic ball or the float. Now you may have to put some tape, like electrician's tape, on the end of the wire in order to get the wire to stick firmly into the plastic ball. It depends upon how big you drill the hole, of course. You may have to do the same if you use a dowel. you have to make sure that the dowel or the wire is firmly placed in the float ball. Now I put the float device into the gauge tube, and of course the last thing you do is fill the box with earth, dirt, potting soil, and then fill the water and the water tray in the bottom with water until the little head pops up above the level of the tube, and you've made your grow box. And you can use this outside in the summer, bring it in for the winter, and they thrive very well, and you will always know when to water them, and they'll certainly freshen up the room, not only with appearance but also with fragrance. So here's hoping. Give it a try. Thanks.